We interact with people every single day. Some inspire us, some challenge us, and some leave us wondering how they navigate the world with such a profound lack of awareness. Today, we are diving deep into the psychology of human intelligence. But we are not talking about standard IQ tests, complex math skills, or the ability to memorize historical facts. True intelligence is about how you perceive the world, how you adapt to it, and how you interact with the vast sea of information around you. On the flip side, there are specific, brutal behavioral signs that point to a lower level of cognitive flexibility. Psychology has identified these red flags, and once you know what they are, you will start seeing them everywhere. Some of these traits might even hit a little too close to home. Here are 10 brutal signs of low intelligence that you need to watch out for. Let us start with the first, and perhaps the most glaring sign. It is a psychological phenomenon known as the Dunning-Kruger Effect. This occurs when someone is loudly and fiercely confident about a subject they actually know absolutely nothing about. You have almost certainly encountered this. Picture the person at a social gathering who aggressively explains economics, politics, or science to actual professionals in those fields, completely oblivious to their own ignorance. Intelligent people are often full of doubts. They hesitate. They use words like maybe, perhaps, or it depends. This is because they have learned enough to realize just how incredibly complex the world truly is. They understand that there are layers to every issue, hidden variables, and exceptions to every rule. Low-intelligence individuals, however, completely overestimate their abilities. They do not possess the necessary knowledge to recognize their own incompetence. They live in a bizarre illusion of superiority and are literally incapable of realizing they are wrong. They will argue their baseless opinions to the bitter end, not because they possess hidden facts, but simply because they lack the cognitive depth to evaluate their own shortcomings. The second brutal sign, which is something we see every single day, is a complete and utter lack of curiosity. Intelligent minds are fundamentally hungry. They are the people who constantly ask why and how. They want to peel back the layers of reality and understand the world on a deeper, more fundamental level. They pull things apart to see how they work, both mechanically and philosophically. A major hallmark of low intelligence, however, is accepting everything exactly at face value. They do not question the narrative handed to them. They do not wonder about the hidden mechanics behind the scenes. They simply ingest what is placed in front of them without a second thought. And worse, when their unquestioned beliefs are challenged, they do not get curious. They get incredibly angry. Instead of wondering if there is a new perspective to explore, or taking a moment to analyze new evidence, they view the challenge as a direct, personal attack. They build thick mental walls to protect their fragile worldview. Exploring a new idea requires cognitive energy that they are either unable or unwilling to expend, so they default to anger to shut the conversation down. Moving on to the third sign, we encounter rigid, black and white thinking. The world we live in is a messy, complicated spectrum of gray areas. Every situation has context, every person has flaws and virtues, and every problem has multifaceted solutions. But for someone with low intelligence, everything exists in rigid extremes. Things are either completely right or completely wrong. People are either entirely good or undeniably evil. Solutions are either absolutely perfect or completely useless. This binary way of looking at life is essentially a psychological defense mechanism. It takes a significant amount of mental processing power to hold two conflicting ideas in your mind at the same time, to weigh pros and cons, and to truly understand context. Psychologists refer to this ability to understand nuance as cognitive complexity. Without it, individuals are forced to categorize everything into overly simplified boxes. This makes them highly susceptible to manipulation and propaganda, because they desperately want the world to be simple. When you try to introduce a middle ground or a nuanced perspective into their conversation, they will reject it outright. They cannot compute the gray area, so they dismiss it entirely, retreating back to their comfortable, simplified extremes. This brings us directly to the fourth sign, which is an aggressive hostility towards opposing opinions. Disagreement is a natural and essential part of human progress. Intelligent people actively seek out individuals who disagree with them because they view it as a golden opportunity to pressure test their own ideas. They want to see if their arguments hold up against intense scrutiny. If they are proven wrong, an intelligent person will adjust their perspective and appreciate the new knowledge they have gained. For someone with low intelligence, however, an opposing opinion is deeply terrifying. Because their entire identity is wrapped up in their rigid beliefs, any challenge to those beliefs triggers a primal fight-or-flight response. Instead of engaging in a rational, calm debate, they will immediately resort to personal attacks, name-calling, and loud emotional outbursts. They will try to shout you down rather than outthink you. This hostility is a transparent mask for their own intellectual insecurity. They know, on a subconscious level, that their arguments lack substance, so they use volume and unhinged aggression to compensate for their blatant lack of logic. Sign number 5 is the chronic inability to take responsibility, characterized by constant blame shifting. Accountability requires a remarkably high degree of self-awareness. It requires you to look at a negative outcome, analyze the chain of events that led to it, and honestly identify your own role in the failure. This process is uncomfortable, but it is the only way human beings learn and grow. Low-intelligence individuals are fundamentally unable to connect their own actions to the consequences they experience in life. If they fail a test, the teacher was unfair. If they lose a job, the boss was out to get them. If their relationship goes up in flames, their partner was crazy. There is always a convenient scapegoat ready to take the fall. By shifting the blame, they protect their fragile ego from the painful realization that they need to improve. But in doing so, they completely rob themselves of the opportunity to learn. They will repeat the exact same mistakes over and over again, completely baffled as to why the universe is constantly conspiring against them, never once realizing that they are the common denominator in all of their own problems. There is a famous quote that perfectly encapsulates our 6th sign. Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people. Pay close attention to what someone talks about when they have nothing specific to do. Highly intelligent people tend to gravitate towards abstract concepts. They talk about philosophy, future possibilities, technological advancements, art, and complex systems of thought. They are deeply interested in the mechanics of the universe. Individuals with lower cognitive depth invariably default to talking about other people. They engage in constant gossip, spreading rumors, and making shallow observations about what someone else is wearing, who is dating who, and what petty drama is currently unfolding in their social circle. This type of conversation requires absolutely no critical thinking. It is intellectual junk food. It provides a quick, cheap hit of social bonding without any of the heavy lifting required to explore complex, meaningful topics. If every conversation with a person revolves around judging and gossiping about others, it is a glaring indicator of a severely limited intellectual horizon. Have you ever noticed that the absolute smartest person in a room is very rarely the loudest? The 7th sign of low intelligence is an overwhelming, desperate need to be the center of attention and dominate the physical space with sheer volume. Intelligent people are exceptionally comfortable in silence. They are often observing, listening, and gathering valuable data before they formulate a thought and decide to share it. They do not feel the uncontrollable urge to broadcast every passing thought that enters their mind. But those lacking intellectual depth often equate volume with validity. They genuinely believe that if they speak the loudest, interrupt others, and completely dominate the airwaves, they have automatically won the conversation. This obnoxious behavior is rooted in a profound lack of substance. Because they do not have well-researched points or insightful perspectives to offer, they use aggressive conversational tactics to bulldoze everyone else in the room. It is a smokescreen designed entirely to hide their lack of knowledge. They do not want a dialogue. They want a monologue where they can force their unchallenged, half-baked opinions onto a captive audience. Intelligence is incredibly closely linked to the psychological ability to delay gratification. This is the capacity to endure temporary discomfort or sacrifice a present reward for a much larger, more meaningful reward in the future. It is what allows us to save money for retirement, study for years to earn a degree, or stick to a grueling workout routine. The 8th sign of low intelligence is a toxic obsession with instant gratification and an absolute inability to foresee long-term consequences. These individuals live entirely in the present moment, driven solely by their immediate, primal impulses. They want the dopamine hit right now, regardless of what it will inevitably cost them tomorrow. They will blow their paycheck on useless luxury items instead of investing in their future. They will ruin a long-standing, valuable relationship for a fleeting moment of excitement. When the unavoidable negative consequences of their impulsive actions finally catch up to them, they act utterly shocked and victimized. They lack the predictive cognitive ability to mentally play out the tape and see how their choices today will irreversibly shape their reality years down the line. In today's hyper-connected digital age, it is easier than ever to surround yourself exclusively with people and information that perfectly align with your pre-existing beliefs. This is known as an echo chamber. While everyone falls into this trap to some degree, sign number 9 is a total and absolute refusal to consume anything outside of that echo chamber. Highly intelligent people actively seek out different perspectives. They will read articles written by people they fundamentally disagree with. They will listen to podcasts from opposite political or philosophical camps, simply to understand the other side's reasoning and expand their own mental models. Low-intelligence individuals, however, build impenetrable fortresses around their minds. They consume only the media that tells them they are already right. They unfriend, block, or completely cut off anyone who dares to post a differing opinion. They do not want the truth. They want endless validation. By completely isolating themselves from intellectual diversity, they guarantee that their worldview never evolves. They remain stagnant, locked in a self-congratulatory loop where every thought they have is just blindly echoed back to them. Finally, we arrive at the 10th, and undoubtedly the most tragic sign. It is the absolute, unwavering belief that they have nothing left to learn. The true hallmark of genius is intellectual humility. The greatest scientists, philosophers, and thinkers throughout all of human history shared one profound, common trait. They were acutely aware of how incredibly little they actually knew compared to the vast, infinite complexity of the universe. They approached life as eternal students, always open to having their minds changed by new evidence. People with low intelligence reach a certain point in their lives, usually very early on, where they decide their mental software is fully downloaded and no further updates will ever be required. They stop reading books. They stop asking meaningful questions. They view changing their mind not as a beautiful sign of growth, but as a humiliating sign of weakness. They become stubborn, stagnant, and completely unteachable. If you try to offer them constructive feedback or introduce a brilliant new way of doing things, they will scoff at you with arrogance. Their mind is a closed, decaying loop, forever sealed off from the incredible, endless expansion of human knowledge. These 10 signs are not meant to be used simply as a weapon to judge the people around you, but rather as a mirror for our own daily behavior. We are all human. We all have moments of stubbornness, times when we cave to the desire for instant gratification, or instances where we avoid uncomfortable, hard truths. The difference between a stagnant mind and a growing mind lies in our ability to recognize these toxic patterns and actively work to correct them. True intelligence is not a fixed number on a standardized exam. It is a living, breathing process of continuous adaptation, deep curiosity, and profound intellectual humility. It is the courage to admit when you are dead wrong, and the relentless drive to seek out the truth, no matter how complex or challenging that truth may be. If you see these signs consistently in the people around you, understand that trying to argue with them is often a massive waste of your precious energy. And if you ever catch yourself exhibiting these exact behaviors, take a step back, take a deep breath, and forcibly reopen your mind to the endless possibilities of the world. Maintain your curiosity, embrace the unknown, and never ever stop learning.